Welcome back, folks. Today I've got something super cool to unbox for you, and we're not just unboxing it, we're going to put it to use in today's video. This guy right here is the Miraco Plus 3D scanner from Revopoint. It is their top-of-the-line all-in-one 3D scanner. Right off the bat, it's got 32 gigs of onboard RAM and a 256 gigabyte internal hard drive. There is no computer that needs to be hooked up to this in order to make it work, and you can do editing right inside of it. With that said, we're going to get this thing out of the box and take a look at what's included with the Miraco Plus 3D scanner. Got a big box here that contains what I assume is the scanner itself. Set that off to the side. Inside of this bag, looks like we've got a bunch of coated targets, some magnetic and sticky. So if you want to put them onto a car so you can easily scan and keep tracking, they've included it all with the scanner. And then it looks like we've also got what they're calling a calibration board kit. That's everything that's inside of the main box. Before we dive into the actual scanner itself, let's open up some of the accessories and see what they've included. So looks like we have a large calibration board sheet, essentially a black backdrop to eliminate ambient interference that enhances the calibration process. And then we've got what appears to be 4 calibration boards. So we've got our metrology kit. These guys here are magnetic parts that fit around large surfaces. This machine can scan things as large as a helicopter. It's got a scan volume of 16 by 16 by 16 feet. Then, of course, in here, we've got a whole bunch of reusable magnetic tracking points that you can use, but you don't really care about that, do you? What you really want to see is the scanner. We'll close that up and we'll get to that later. Inside of the bag, we've got a whole bunch of markers. It looks like there's 500 of them in here. It looks like there's actually 1,000 total. We've got 2 bags of 500 on top of what they sent in the metrology kit. We've got a near mode calibration board. So for tiny things, use this to calibrate the machine. Now, I think I should preface this by saying I've never owned a real 3D scanner before. I've used technology such as Polycam, and well, if you've used it before, you'll know its limitations. So anything I say, I may say it wrong or may not be accurate in 100% of the words that I come out with, but I'm going to try my best to, well, be accurate. Got obviously our instructions, magic mat, and more markers, a marker board for turntable. We've got our magic mat. A lot of this stuff seems like we have a couple different ones. The first magic mat is 80 by 60 centimeters, so 800 by 600 millimeters, and this one is 40 by 40 centimeters. In the box, we've got a dual USB-C 65 watt power brick, as well as a USB-C to USB-C cable. We've got the wristband attachment for the scanner, tiny little turntable for scanning things like this bust that they included. We'll be taking a look at that in just a second. Power cable for the turntable, a little tripod for the scanner, and a cleaning cloth. And obviously this handy little carrying bag that's got a whole bunch of different compartments in it to store not only the scanner, but some of the stuff you may need if you're taking the scanner on the go. Now, Revopoint offers 3 different versions of the scanner. They have the Miraco, or Miraco, I think it's pronounced Miraco, the Miraco Pro, and then this is their top-of-the-line Miraco Plus. And I'll put up on screen right now what some of the differences are between the models so you can get a better understanding of what we're working with. Look at that guy. So it's got a neat little fold-out screen here, so if you want to scan underneath a car, you can still see what you're scanning. Power button on the side and our capture button on the top. On the bottom side, there's a standard 1/4-inch thread for threading in your tripod, and then on the left side here is a USB-C adapter. I'm going to take you in for a little bit of a closer shot. We're going to turn on the scanner and go through the setup process, see what all is required, and then we're going to take a scan of this little bust that they included, amongst other things. So we can hit start. It's going to have me connect to Wi-Fi, so I'm going to do that off screen. It does appear to be running on Android of some sort. I couldn't exactly tell you what version of Android, but based off the keyboard and some of the different features on here, it is running Android of some sorts. Here in the United States, looks like we have both far and near modes, so scanning things that are larger or farther away for that matter, you switch to the far mode, and if you want to do tiny little things, you can switch to the near mode. One thing really cool about the Miraco, it's got the ability to scan things that are as tiny as 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, or like I said in the beginning, as large as a helicopter. We've got single shot mode, overlap between adjacent frame by at least 50%. And it's also got one tap edit, post-processing, and all that cool stuff that we will take a look at in just a little bit. So you can see kind of what it's able to capture right here. Anything that's super dark is going to have a hard time capturing and distinguishing between a shadow and the object itself. It is able to capture that because it is a white object. Whereas if we put this guy out here, you can see my hand, but the object itself is hidden. So for anything black, you'll want to use a light marking spray, and that stuff is usually able to come right off. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I don't have a clue what I'm doing when it comes to real 3D scanners. So you're going to be learning along with me throughout the course of the next few months. I've got a huge project coming up that is going to require me to scan. I'll be vague, but it's a vehicle, and we're going to redesign a part for it and print it out on one of our many printers in here, if not multiple of them. I had a buddy reach out to me a couple months ago and say, I don't like the way this particular part looks on my vehicle. There are no aftermarket accessories that look the way that I want it to look. There's some that are similar, but could you redesign one for me? And I said, no, that's not in my wheelhouse. Like, this part is probably this big, which is hard for you to tell on camera, I suppose, but it's probably 2.5 feet in total length, if not a little bit longer. So not only is it going to be a multiple part print that is pretty large, it's also going to take some significant time afterwards with Bondo or another body filler, as well as paint. We're going to have to pick out a material that is fitting for outside in both the hot and cold weather. Where I live, it gets as cold as, we'll say -10 is probably the coldest that it's gotten here in the last couple of years, and upwards of 95 or 100 degrees is about the hottest that it's gotten. So we're really spanning about 110 degree temperature range from wintertime to summertime. Most of the time, though, we're sitting around 75, 85 during the summer months and around 10 to 20 degrees during the coldest part of the winter months. But you have those anomalies, so we have to make sure the material that we choose is fitting for that. I would like to mention, while this video itself is not sponsored by PCBWay, they are a sponsor of the channel, and we may end up using them for the final product when we go to print this entire thing out, if the materials that I have on hand prove not to be sufficient enough. But we'll dive into that if the problem should arise where I'm unable to do it here in the shop. So I've got this set up, I've got the turntable spinning. I'm just going to hit continuous record. So the scanner gives you a range up top here of how close or how far away you are from the object. So after it does its full spin around the entire object once, I'm going to reposition. We'll hit pause. You can see it right off the bat, we've kind of already got the majority of our scan here. We are missing some things underneath, such as underneath the jaw there. So what I want to do is see if we can bring this scanner down a little bit lower, possibly taking it off of this turntable. All right, so it's picking back up on the tracking. So I'm just going to slowly raise it above its head so it can capture the top points. And then I'm going to come down here, try to get underneath a little bit so we can capture underneath and get all of those areas. All right, then I'm going to hit done. You can tap here to process the model. So we got a little bit messy there where it was unable to pick up on some of the areas. We're going to tap one tap edit though. And let's do fast just to see what it's able to process with some of the basic data. We've got our mesh file, and since we went underneath, we've captured all of that data, and we've also managed to get underneath the jaw there. Now, obviously this isn't the most detailed model. So if we wanted to, we can go back into one tap edit and hit detailed, and it basically is going to go back through and redo that one tap edit to give us a little bit more detail inside of the bust. Now the screen says it's going to take about 7 minutes. I'll let it do its thing and we'll come back when it's done. So we've got a little bit more detail, I believe, in this model, and you can see, let's try to line this up right. So we could delete that, and then we'd be left with this bottom here. Go back. You can also do manual editing where you change the isolation rate, which I'm not familiar with at this point. I will have to definitely do some more digging with that. But right off the bat, we have our first scan. If we wanted to resume scanning this same object from underneath, we can do that. Don't know how well the tracking is going to pick back up on it, but let's just see what happens if we lay it on its side, or on its back rather, and hit resume scan. What I really want to do is attempt to capture the object again. So we've got tracking picked back up, so I should be able to move ourselves down and around the object just to capture the bottom of the surface. Then I'll hit done, go back into model, and you can see now we have the bottom surface captured. We'll do one tap edit again go back into detail, let it do its thing, and come back when it's finished. So now you can see we've got our original mesh combined with the scans that we've previously done, but now there's stuff in the background. So let's take that lasso tool and come in here, just cut around our model. So we've got our entire bust here that we just scanned. All this happened within a matter of about 20 minutes. We should be able to go back, and then we can either share through Wi-Fi to a PC, or we can share it through the USB cable. To do this, we're gonna have to go over to the computer, download the RevoScan 5 application, and then we should be able to send this through Wi-Fi over to our computer, load it up into our 3D software, or even just load it into the slicer and 3D print it. I'm on Mac OS, so you download the RevoScan 5 software from revopoint3d.com. Once you install it, you can open it up. It'll ask you if you want to do it for data transfer or if you're looking to connect to PC. I chose data transfer. Then you can see it pops up here with our model. They included the bust as a project example, but we're going to import the model that we scanned. So I'll just click import and let it do its thing. When it's finished, you can click OK. So you can see inside of here, we've got the same model that we had when we did our original scan. You can see we have a few missed points on the bottom here that aren't closed in. I'm going to do fill holes, and it automatically detected the holes that were open in this model. If we click apply, we got to select the holes that we want to fill. And then if we click apply, you can see that it has filled all of those open mesh points that we selected anyways. So I'm just going to leave it like this. We can click export mesh model as an STL, and we're going to import it as millimeters. And you can see now we've got the bust that we just scanned right inside of our 3D modeling software. We can play around with it, try to make it as straight as possible. So if we wanted to create an exact replica of what we just scanned, we could also open up OrcaSlicer and import the 3MF file that we just created. So that would be pretty much a direct reprint of the 3D model that we just scanned. Pretty cool. There's obviously some areas that are pretty rough. If we wanted to even come in here, we could come down, give it a cut so it's a nice flat bottom there. Has some support so it prints nicely. I'm obviously not going to print this because I have one sitting over there. That is pretty cool. You can also come in here and do the one-click edit again. And this is even smaller of a parameter than the one that was on the scanner itself. I believe the scanner in fast mode was about 0.64 millimeters, and in the detailed mode was around 0.3 something. So this is going to go down to 0.22 and maybe give us a little bit of extra added clarity. So that is a really cool feature. Now, obviously this is just a bust. It's a white model that they provided to us. So I don't know how interesting that is for you, but it did work. So inside of the scanning software here, there's a couple different options as far as scan modes. The one we used for the bust was continuous. You'll hit start and it just moves around a piece and will capture all the points. Really, it's set up best for a turntable for the continuous mode, or if you're walking around an object. Also have single shot mode, which you aim the scanner at the object, tap the start or the play button on the top every time you want to capture a frame. And you want to ensure that there's at least a 50% overlap between each frame to avoid any errors. But it does say use this mode to capture more details and clearer textures. So I did just figure out how to do the import from Wi-Fi. So I'm going to disconnect it from the computer, go to new project. Once we are inside of the new project screen, you can hit file, import from Miraco, Wi-Fi. Then on the scanner itself, we're going to do all models. Enter our code. It's actively sharing the project file via Wi-Fi to the computer. All right. Going to go fill holes again, detect, click all the little holes that we see, hit apply, one-click edit, and hit apply. This importing process and one-click edit is the same exact process that we did when we imported via the USB cable. One cool thing about the USB cable, though, is while you're plugged in and transferring files over, you can charge your scanner up. Once again, because we have all this other stuff in the background that we want to delete, come in with the lasso tool, and select all the stuff that we don't need. Fill in our holes, and there's our model. So it does work over Wi-Fi as well on Mac. I assume it also works on Windows the same way. So obviously there's still a lot to learn about this scanner, a ton of modes on it that I have not even paid attention to thus far, but I'm very curious to see if we would be able to take a real world part, specifically from my router table. And those of you who've been watching for, well, since I started this channel back up, you would have seen the video where I redesigned a fence piece for my router table. So it got me thinking, could I just scan that piece, reprint it, and have a duplicate of it that's exactly the same? Obviously, there's going to be nuances with it because 3D scans don't pick up everything, and sometimes they leave jagged edges. And for a part like this in particular, where it's going to slide in and out of a very, very tight groove on the router table, I'd be curious to know if those little imperfections are going to cause it to be a little too tight. But the ability to at least scan the model and have something physical to work off of versus two pictures from a top-down angle and, say, the right side of the piece, that may just allow us to completely remodel this part with 100% accuracy or 99% accuracy anyways. So I'm going to stop talking about it. I'm going to go grab the part off of the router table that wasn't broken. We're going to bring it in here, hit it with some scanning spray, and give it a go. So I'm going to walk you out here. We're just going to use the phone for this. Don't ignore that. Yep, ignore all of that stuff. Let's see. So this is the original part from the router table. Obviously a pretty complex shape. It was injection molded or cast. You can see all the little areas like there, right there, from where it was cast or where they poured the molten aluminum or whatever this is actually made out of into there. We don't need that stuff. In fact, we don't really even need any of these ribs here, but I'm very curious to see what we are able to capture with the scanner. And just for reference, this was the part that I designed based off of our sketch. So I took a couple top-down photos, some photos of it left and right, brought it into Shaper 3D, and managed to come up with this. And it works great. Original part? No. See, I don't even know which one's real. That's our original part. This is the one we remodeled. And aside from the remodel being slightly smaller overall, you know, all of the holes line up, they're in the same spot. It's pretty much a one-to-one replica of it. I mean, even as far as the front piece right there, there's a couple things obviously I didn't include. Like I mentioned, we didn't really need this part here. All I really needed it to do was slide in and out of the groove on the router table. Design this so it would be better for 3D printing and not so many sharp edges, I guess is the right word. Anyway, let's take this. We're going to hit it with some scanning spray that I purchased from Revopoint over the weekend and see if we can get a one-to-one replica. So the scanning spray that I'm going to be using today is AB6. It is a 3D scanning sublimation spray, so after 2 to 6 hours, it should disappear. In my experience from the last couple of days using it, it takes more like 18 to 24 hours to disappear, but it does work really, really well. I've gone ahead and laid this piece of paper, tissue paper that they included with one of these scanning boards, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit it from all angles, trying to capture every single point in there. That way we don't have any missed spots on our scan. Gonna go ahead and lay it on its side without really trying to touch any of the stuff. That way I can get the bottom. Try to do that with the other side as well. I am probably going to, in this situation, walk around it with continuous mode and see how that works. If we don't get a good enough scan with it, then we can do single shot mode, which should provide us with a little bit more clarity. So I guess I'm just going to hit continuous and we're going to start capturing all the points, at least that it can see from here. I'm going to try to walk around it nice and slow. What I'm going to do now that I have what I think is going to be an okay scan, I'm going to share this to PC load it up in RevoScan 5 and see if we can combine these meshes together. Now, once again, it is worth noting, I'm a moron. I don't know what I'm doing with this software. So anything that I say, again, is my experience so far. I've seen some pretty intense scans from this thing from a couple other YouTubers. So if I can get to that point, I'll be sure to show it to you here. Wait, let's jump back into the computer. The scans seem to have finished importing. Let's see what we can figure out. I'm going to try to do one-click edit for all 4 of those at once. I'll get there, I promise. So obviously I've got a little bit of cleanup to do, fill holes and stuff like that, but and get rid of all that crap. I wasn't able to get underneath there, but I mean, for the purpose of modeling this part again, that did not come out bad at all. Okay, so after a couple hours, we did a few different scans. The one I ended up using was actually in continuous mode, and I was able to slowly rotate the point cloud board, or the calibration board, I guess it's called, that they send along with the scanner for the near mode. And by setting the object on top of that and slowly rotating it around to capture 4 different scans, I was able to get a really, really clean looking representation or scan of that router table fence bracket. I took it into RevoScan 5 and, well, I'll put some stuff up on the screen right now just to show you how memory intensive 3D scanning can be. My computer that I'm using and have been using for about 6 months now is an M3 Max MacBook Pro. It's got 36 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD, but at its peak, RevoScan 5 was using about 110 gigs of RAM, including some swap memory from the SSD. It was able to successfully complete the render, and we were able to get an export of the STL, so we can bring that into our 3D modeling software, or load it up into OrcaSlicer and try to print that if we wanted to. But that is something I did want to point out. This thing was very memory intensive, so it is not for the faint of heart. For your computer anyway. So if your computer doesn't have at least 32 gigs of RAM, RevoScan 5 probably won't even run according to them, but you're probably better off if you have upwards of 90 to 100 gigs of RAM on your computer if you want to do some really, really in-depth modeling. Now, what I will say is I may have caused some of the issues myself. I basically told the one-click edit that it has in there that I wanted the most detail it could possibly get. So I brought it all the way to 0.1 millimeters. Typically what you'll see from the scanner in fast mode when you're using the scanner to do the editing is about 0.6 millimeters. And if you go to the detailed mode, it's around 0.3, give or take. So I really pushed it to its limits and we were able to get a really, really clean looking scan that I could probably throw in there and 3D print if it didn't have a few areas that were open holes. And you'll see that on screen now as I'm talking about it. But it was a very successful scan. It took about an hour and a half total between scanning it and letting the computer process everything. I had to go back in there afterwards and clean up some of the, I'll call them messy points, but we're definitely going to be using this for some more projects in the near future. But I just wanted to give you guys an overall first look. It's been about 5 days since I first started filming this video and got it unboxed and did my initial scan of the bust. So I've got a lot more learning that I need to do when it comes to actually taking scans that are super detailed. I think on the next one, I probably won't go to 0.1 millimeters. We'll probably stick to around 0.2 or 0.3 because there was quite a bit of data for it to process. My computer was able to handle it at the end of the day, but it was not very happy. In the next video for the Miraco Plus, we're going to be doing a whole bunch more scanning and probably some larger objects as well, because the project that I'm going to be working on, the main reason why I reached out to Revopoint in the beginning about this scanner was to do a vehicle. So I do want to get some of those point markers and magnetic pieces that were included with the scanner put onto a vehicle and take some initial scans of that. Maybe try something like a table saw or my router table itself, maybe even the bandsaw. The bandsaw is one thing I'm really interested in trying, although it is a very big black object, so the scanner might have some issue with it, but with that scanning spray or turning the scanner into dark mode, we may have some luck with that. Overall, I'm very excited to have this as an addition to my little print farm shop here, and you will definitely be seeing not only more use of the scanner itself in the near future, but modeling around some of the things that we scan with it. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows that you want to see more of this type of content. And if you do want to see more of this, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next upload. I want to say thank you again to Revopoint for sending over the Miraco Plus scanner and letting us use it here on the channel. It is going to be a great addition to my shop. Thank you all so much for sticking with me in this video, I know it was a little bit long and some parts of it were probably a little bit boring for some of you, but those of you who are still here at the end, leave me a comment down below using the word Miraco, and I will know you stayed here until the end. I will see you all in the next video, folks. Take care, and I hope you all have an awesome day. See ya.